Coming up, what an excellent day for not listening.
Sorry, Lester, what'd you say?
I said not. Well, howdy, folks, and welcome to Minute 49 of the Exorcist Minute, a show where we endeavor to examine, extrapolate, and excavate the Exorcist minute by terrifying minute. My name is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I'm Keenan Diaz.
And we'll be your holy guides on this journey through what some have called the scariest movie of all time. Okay, so our minute begins with Dr. Klein finishing up saying, "It's a symptom of a type of disturbance."
And it ends with him saying, temporal lobe is very common.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we got a lot of Dr. Klein talking in this minute. A lot of talking and almost no listening, as we'll find. Let's get back to the top here. So he has just come out of that door marked A, and either out of nerves or just sheer obliviousness, he lights up in front of the mother of the kid he's just been examining, just administered a shot to, and he starts talking about the temporal lobe, which Google says is most commonly associated with processing auditory information and with the encoding of memory. The temporal lobes are also believed to play an important role in processing affect, emotions, language, and certain aspects of visual perception. Interesting. I actually went a little farther, and from my admittedly brief research, it seems like a damaged temporal lobe would result in loss of ability in these departments. So these functions would be impaired rather than heightened. So you might have trouble recognizing things visually, like a cow, for example, right? And if it's the right temporal lobe, you would have trouble with the memory of sounds and shapes. So you would see a cow, you would have you might not recognize that it's a cow, and you might not remember like what sound a cow makes, right? And the left temporal lobe is language, so you might not remember the word cow, right? Overall, like you might have a decreased libido and a decreased sense of humor or like recognition of humor.
Are those hand in hand, libido and humor?
Oh, well, that might, hey, you know what? Every guy, growing up during Who Framed Roger Rabbit, they were all looking at Jessica Rabbit. But I don't know, like maybe the girls were like, that Roger, he's a go-getter.
That's what she says, right? He said, right? He says, "What do you see in this rabbit?" And she said, "He makes me laugh."
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. But yeah, like, okay. So Nurse Minder, all one word on YouTube, Nurse Minder, right? Also says that you might see an increase in religiosity, which is certainly interesting, for this film.
So that's the first time you said, so like that's the only thing that might be heightened so far. So everything else would be damaged or dimmed. Right.
Yeah. So, and that kind of makes me wonder, right? Like all in all, it seems like this would only serve as like a very perfunctory, very superficial explanation to what's going on with Reagan, right? Like, because it seems like her things are heightened, right? It seems like an actual temporal lobe disorder or like damage would result in her like being unable to hear things or unable to recognize things or remember things or stuff like that. And, I remember watching this before doing this podcast and thinking, okay, he's a doctor and he's obviously taking into account all of the things that he has observed and also all of the things that Chris is reporting. And so this temporal lobe explanation must be coming from a careful, personal examination of this specific case and not from a textbook that says, this part of the brain affects these things, right? Because like it does seem to affect the same areas, but like in the exact opposite way, which is something that like you would notice if you cared at all.
Right. I mean, when you're watching this movie for the first time, you're like, he's a doctor, he's a man. He has all the answers.
He's Dr. Man.
Right. He's talking. He's saying all this stuff. He must know something.
Right.
Yeah, but then as you watch it, by the time you finish watching the movie the first time, you're like, oh well, that was a waste. That was probably just damaging more than any help whatsoever. It probably hurt Chris especially, and then obviously traumatizes Reagan.
Right. So to go down this useless and painful like side path that like we didn't need to do at all, right? But like he speaks with such authority, right? So like he's
got such a big desk.
Yeah, he's got like. Did you see that desk? But yeah, so like he tricked me, and not that, like, I don't mean he tricked me into thinking it wasn't a demon. Like I think all of us know that, but he tricked me into thinking that he cared enough about this specific case not to rattle off this like textbook diagnosis, right? Like, or is this Friedkin or Blatty like rattling off the diagnoses thinking like, oh, no one's going to check. No one's going to like start a podcast and see if like this matches up, right?
A podcast? What is that? It's a radio show you make in
like
your garage?
Yeah.
A garage? What's that?
Yeah.
It's like a barn for your car?
A car? What's that? It's like an automated horse?
It's like a horse you don't have to feed.
Right. It's like, or okay, it's like could I be wrong? Is this the best explanation that they had at the time? Like all the stuff I just said about like temporal lobes, was it known and documented in the 70s? And yes, like on further inspection, I'm seeing like it's also associated with seizures and strange repetitive movements, hallucinations, smells, sounds, epilepsy. So it very well could be the best explanation that science can offer. I guess my question is, are we, the audience, supposed to hear Dr. Klein's explanation and be like, oh, well, I know he's wrong because demon, but he came up with the best explanation that science could offer? Or is there a doctor in the audience? Is there a doctor in the audience? Like, is there a doctor like watching this for the first time in the 70s going like, wow, this guy's not even trying. Like a better medical explanation would be XYZ, and this guy doesn't even like go that far. Yeah,
we've been talking about a lot of medical and biological sciences here. So just another disclaimer that we are not medical professionals or psychiatrists and don't take any advice that we give you about anything. Oh, good God.
Except the advice to see a doctor, like
right, exactly.
with your medical problems.
Right, exactly, to seek out professional help. But yeah, I'm of two minds of this because I know exactly what you're saying. Like we're with part of it's a little bit because we're in Chris's shoes, right? Once you've seen the movie once, where we're watching it, we're like you're useless, right? I'm telling you what I've seen with my own damn eyes, and you're telling me that no, it's epilepsy, and it doesn't look like epilepsy to me. And it's not that it's not the convulsions that we saw were not from Reagan; they were from the bed, right? Like we've seen that. At the same time, you're like, oh, geez, I mean, like being this in Dr. Klein's shoes, right? I mean, like he's been doing all these tests, and this girl like spits in his face and stuff, and like maybe he's cutting some corners here and there without realizing it, but I mean, he's putting effort into this case, He's getting spit and spat on and knocked around and embarrassed. He has to say the C word in front of this famous movie star who we might have seen before.
Yeah. I guess I'm so used to like shitting all over this doctor that it's like seeing things in his shoes, right? Like he is going through like quite a lot.
Well, Blatty seems in the book, right, at the very least with the source material to have an interest in showing people who we either discount, like say Detective Kinderman. Right? Like we look at him and we're like, oh, he must be a terrible detective. Like he doesn't look like a detective, isn't sounding like a detective. He's talking about all this nonsense. And he's the one who has, besides say Damien, he has the most information at the end and sort of puts it more together than anybody else. Right. And then again, like you say, Father Marin looks like he's weak, but he's actually strong and vice versa. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. Like I'm I guess I'm predisposed to like just like not trust this doctor like based on like what I already know about the story, right? Like I'm so distrustful that I even went back to check to see if he even pointed to the right spot on his head when he talks about temporal lobe, because I thought I remembered him tapping his forehead, and I was like, "You're an idiot, Dr. Klein." But no, I went back and it checked. It's like, so he got it right. He
taps his temple for his temporal lobe. Yes,
yes. But no, he's tapping the side of his head where the temporal lobe should be. But I was like, all right. You get a pass, Dr. Klein. I'm
win
watching
this round, Dr. Klein. I see you've played Knifey Spoony before.
But again, just speaking to the not listening, not hearing Chris. And folks, like I want to like point out, and again, I think Keenan has already, mentioned this, right? Like not only are we not medical professionals, but like we also have like in our real lives, we have a very high opinion of doctors, right? Like, and scientists. And we will say before anything else, like, trust science, trust doctors. Like, they are the ones who know. Like, we just came out of a pandemic, which was like
we sort of came out of it.
We're sort of, we're still kind of in it. And
right.
and like the reason being that, like, not enough people are trusting the science and trusting the doctors and everything like that. So we will be the first ones to say, trust doctors, trust science, and absolutely, right. It's this character, I think, the character of Dr. Klein.
That's the trouble. That's part of the reason, I empathize to some extent with people who mistrust what medicine has told them, right? Because the power of those anecdotal issues is incredibly, incredibly persuasive, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know Tony Fauci. He says he's a doctor, whatever, right? He's in Washington, and he looks like a small little man, and I don't know him, but I do remember this doctor who I came in to do an appointment with, and he didn't even look up from his chart, and I was just like a customer to him, right? And he was just getting me out of there, and that that's incredibly persuasive, right? Like that's a real failing, and then of course you extrapolate that to the entire machine of the institution of medicine, right? The institution of science. And, I think this is why you're bringing this up, right? Because, like, movies have that power, obviously, right? It's like, okay, this is this doctor, and that he's standing in, he's a metaphor, right? He's standing in for the wider issues and the wider problem. Of not listening to faith. You're right. Completely. When people who are science-minded say faith is useless, right? That makes people who have faith less trustful of science. Of course, it would.
Right. Yeah. It like, for the purposes of this story, both Friedkin and Blatty have decided that, doctors, for which, Dr. Klein is kind of like a representative of, but we're going to see, like, even more doctors later on, just kind of being almost like clones of Dr. Klein, right? Like, kind of just like echoing his, what he is saying and what he is pushing his,
and
his
even,
kind of like
even less of a human character, right? So as much as we're like, Dr. Klein is ignoring us, but like, then we're going to have doctors who are like behind glass or disembodied voices, right? And don't shake hands with Mrs. McNeil or anything.
Right. And they're just known as the doctors. Right. Yeah. So for the purpose of this story, doctor's bad.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, again, like, speaking to the not listening and the not hearing, Chris, right? That's not a doctor commentary. That's a human commentary, right? Like, that's a human failing, right? Like, she's talking about, like, you don't understand. There's no way that her brain could make the bed shake with me on it, and because Klein has already drawn the conclusion that Reagan's shaking body is what's shaking the bed. Because he didn't see it.
Right.
He also, is not listening to Chris, like, here being like, I know the difference between my daughter causing the bed to shake and the bed shaking by itself, right? Klein is assuming that these two hysterical dames are being so hysterical that they misinterpreted the shaking of the bed, even though they were they were the ones on it, right? Like, because apparently 2 female brains does not equal 1 male brain, according to Klein. That's Klein saying that. That's
not you.
No, this is the opinions of Dr. Klein do not necessarily represent, do not at all represent the opinions of the Exorcist Minute. So they couldn't possibly have assessed the situation correctly, right? Not like I would. I'm Dr. Klein. Right.
If we wanted to draw a more sympathetic picture of him, which we don't in this movie, right? But like the movie's not interested in that. But like, you think of, in the Titanic, right? The movie, the movie, The Titanic.
Right. I thought you were just mentioning the boat.
Right. The movie, The Titanic by the James Cameron, right? Like, there had been other Titanic movies, and, people have this popular understanding of what had happened. And he takes time out of that to say, like, Captain Smith was doing everything that he should have done based on his years and decades of experience, right? There's even like a line where the Bill Paxton character's like, he had decades of experience working against him, right? So that we don't personify as other versions of the Titanic story have done, and saying like, this is all Captain Smith's fault, or this was all the first officer's fault. Like, James Cameron is like, it is a systems problem, and it's more about like the hubris of man, and if it's anybody's fault, it's the company's fault, right?
So
we could have had something here anywhere, right? We could have had Father Karras, who's a psychiatrist and a doctor as well, right? It could have been, as we could have had a line where Chris is like, and these stupid doctors, like, no, don't blame them, they have all these reasons why they would misdiagnose this, right? No, that's not Blatty's interest and not Friedkin's interest.
No. But yeah, so like, all that aside, right, I think this minute very clearly shows Klein is guilty of not listening to Chris. Like, he gives her the explanation of what it could be, and he doesn't trust her to know what he's talking about. So when she very clearly says, no, like, I understood what you just told me, but no, that thing you just said is not what's happening, he assumes that she just didn't understand his explanation, rather than wondering, is like, hey, wait, maybe I don't have all the info, like whether or not temporal lobe checks out. Like, that's a bad doctor right there, right? And not talking about like all doctors being like objectively bad. Like, if you're a doctor, you don't do this, which you just what Dr. Klein just did, right? Not taking into account what your patient is saying to you, repeatedly saying to you, like trying to tell you. They shouldn't have to work so hard to like get you on the same page. Right.
Yeah, it's been my experience nowadays, and maybe I just have really good doctors and really nice doctors and I'm comfortable with them. But oftentimes when you go to a doctor nowadays, at least the ones I go to, it's very frequently like this and this and this, and they don't necessarily speak in absolute terms anymore. Like, it's this, it's almost overwhelmingly this. They're like, well, we're thinking it's this, as it is in a lot of cases. Maybe it is, and maybe it could be this, and they sort of give you options more. So I think this is reflective of the kind of medical bedside manner that we would have in the 60s and 70s.
Right, correct. Yeah. And then, okay, so let's put that aside for a second and look at how he responds, right? He says, Mrs. McNeil, the problem with your daughter isn't her bed, it's her brain.
There's no muscles in there. It's all goo.
Yeah. Problem with your daughter is her gooey brain. We looked at the x-rays, there are no bones at all.
Somebody done stole her brain bones.
Also, there's a giant Halloween skeleton lurking inside her body. I stole that from...
Oh, God, that's very funny, though.
Wait, I gotta say his name. Hang on. Oh, God, I love him. Pete Holmes. Okay,
you stole it from Pete Holmes. All right, Pete Holmes is very funny.
Yeah, I stole that from Pete Holmes. He does this whole sketch where like he brings this patient in and he's like, I'm some very, very disturbing news. And he pulls up the x-ray and it's just an x-ray of this guy's skeleton. And he's like, apparently there's, a giant Halloween skeleton lurking inside your body. Right. And he points, it's like, I'm sorry to have to tell you this. And the patient's like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, this is in you right now.
Oh boy, that's funny.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, so like the problem isn't your daughter's bed, it's her brain.
It's her brain.
Like what? Like, and okay, like I know maybe the sensitivity training, Keenan, isn't like what it is now, but Jesus, like it's your daughter's brain. Like we make a joke about it. We joked about like, oh, your weird daughter, disorder of the nerves. Like that was our joke. And then I watched this minute and I'm like, oh, he's doing the same thing.
Right.
Like he's saying your daughter is weird. It's her brain.
A brain no good.
Yeah. And so it like also this like stubbornness, right? Like it's like, look, I know more than you, lady. So I'm not even going to entertain the possibility that I might be wrong.
Right. We've been doing tests all week. And if you're not going to listen to these tests, then why are we doing these tests?
You're not going to listen to this diploma and this desk. It's like, and yeah, like, I mean, I know it's his like ego here, but also like, the doctors and like actual doctors and scientists have cautioned against the tendency to treat science as if it were dogma. Right? Like the moment you start thinking of science as this like unchanging, written in stone thing, right? You're almost turning it into a religion, right? Like, you got people saying, well, science says this and science says that, according to science, the book of John Hopkins 3:16, right? Like that's when you have a problem, right? They say that like science shouldn't be thought of as the answer because science is a question. It's the question. It's the eternal question, right? How, why, where, what, who, right? The moment science stops asking about, questions and discovery is the moment it stops being science, right?
That's been one of the problems as we are, coming out of either coming out of the pandemic or coming out of the second stage of the pandemic. I mean, there's more of it coming, unfortunately. But as we're easing out of this, which is, the event of our adult lives so far, like this pandemic for Lester and myself. Like that's been part of the problem, is that when we're in a crisis, and it's a crisis of science, and scientists, a lot of the scientists were talking in the right terms about questions and confidence intervals, right? And like we think it might be this, and we think it might be this, and and that's not satisfying. Right.
No.
So
and then people fly off the handle. It's like, you think?
Right.
Like,
of
I
course.
thought this was science.
And last month you said it was this, and now you're saying it's that, and you're just you're just making it up as you go along, or you were either lying then or lying now, and that's because when that's partially to blame. Like you're saying, partially that's the institution of science's problem. They've gotten used to saying like this is the absolute truth and there's nothing else to learn here, right? And it's partially like the problem of the educational system that says like this is the answer. There's no other solution to this, right? But then it's the wider, it's the country's and the culture's wider misunderstanding of what science is supposed to be. Like all of these things failed the public, and then that made them mistrust science, and that made them not trust vaccines and masks, which masks are so effective it's stupid that we didn't realize it. And to a lot of these people's points, you mistrusted them, right? The scientists at the beginning of our pandemic here in America were saying things and simplifying things in a way, and spinning things that were clearly false about they should have said masks are very protective right now. If you have access to masks, please don't wear them because we don't have enough for nurses and doctors. And if and you should stay home and not take masks. And instead they said, we don't think masks are effective right now. And that was just not correct. And then you're caught in a lie. Like the very first informational missive you put out in the pandemic is well, let's not say a lie at least, but like, a willful, well, that sounds like a lie, a willful misconstruction of the truth, right? Then people had trouble switching to believing.
Right. And then you have like, like something as ridiculous as like, drawing the line of like, are you a masker? Are you an anti-masker? It's like, I didn't know this was political. Like,
identity, right?
Yeah. But no, it's like, they are effective, but obviously,
stupidly, of course they are. Like it's a barrier between your orifices and the outside world, of course. Yes,
it shouldn't even be a question, right? But it because of how that information was delivered to the masses, it like, again, like people are going to interpret things the way that they want to interpret them, right?
But, and this, I'm sorry, we're getting off. This is the major event of our lives, of our adult lives, like of our childhoods is 9/11. And now this is the pandemic. And so I'm sorry if we're getting too heated here, but like science's failure to communicate, as well as the public's, failure to educate themselves. I mean, it's not all scientists like that.
Let's give it to the public as well.
And then there are these people who are willing to manipulate the public for their own personal gain.
Yes.
Like this cost hundreds of thousands of American lives. Like right,
unnecessarily,
right. Yeah. So, anyways, I'll sit back down. I got up. I pulled my soapbox out of my filing cabinet here. I was talking.
But that's like, I mean, folks, like, you might be listening to this in the 3020s, right?
Right.
Or whatever.
I hope you're out there in the 3020s. I hope this isn't the end of our.
Still be there, right? Like, I hope aliens aren't listening to us and it's like, this was an extinct species. It's like, I don't know what they're going to make of it if this is the thing they find.
They got no bones. What do you mean they don't got no bones in their brains?
Like, everybody has bones in their brains. Like, it was
right, but they were like,
no wonder they died out.
This audio recording is from a month before the extinction of their species. Due to the COVID Zeta variant.
Right. Oh, COVID Zeta. But people's distrust of science and like it's not necessarily like always linked with people's like belief in something else, right? That is to say, like I remember there was there was a video going around of a guy, and this I'm not trying to be funny about this. This is not a funny thing, but this was as the vaccine had come out, and this guy was in his deathbed, and he was saying, like, we are a conservative Christian family, and so we decided not to get the vaccine, but now I wish I had. And just the fact that we had gone so far as to associate conservative Christian, like, I don't care what, like whatever you are, but associating that with not getting a vaccine, like how did a vaccine become political and religious?
Yeah. That's the question of our lifetimes, unfortunately.
Right. Like those shouldn't be like mutually exclusive things. Like you can have science, and you can also have like your religion and your political beliefs as well, right? Like you can have all of those at the same time, right? But like we have like decided to draw this weird line. Folks in the future, like if you're listening in a history class about this, like there was a time when like science was like on one side of the political spectrum, and like religion and all of those things. It was weird, right? Like, hopefully now you guys can all like, mix and match, and that's great. If you're still around.
Right. To the aliens.
To the aliens, yeah.
The secret Martians who have just been waiting below the surface for this to happen to us.
Yeah. Or I guess we wouldn't call them aliens now. We call them like, the people who are there.
Martian Earthians, like Asian Americans,
Martians,
Earthian Martians.
Right. One of my favorite comedians, like he's Irish comedian Dara O'Brien, folks. So that's Dara, Dara, O with a little apostrophe, and then Brian, so Briain, right? So he started out Catholic, and now he's an atheist with a degree in mathematics and theoretical physics. He's married to a surgeon, right? And he loves responding to like religious fanatics who tell him, well, science doesn't know everything, right? And his response is, yes, science knows it doesn't know everything, otherwise it would stop.
Right.
It's like he's very, very funny. Go check him out. Right.
Yeah. And then just to defend some religiosity a little bit. I mean, religious scholars know they don't know everything, right? It's when people want answers to things, and it's very easy. And like religious scholars know that the nature of God is unknowable to some extent, even though they believe in God. And they're constantly trying to find more about the nature of God and the nature of being and what the soul is, right?
Right. So in the same way that we're not trying to say like doctors equals bad, we're also not trying to say like that, religious equals bad either. Like, it's that common trope of like, oh, if you're religious, then you're, you don't adhere to science or anything. No, that's not true at all. Like we have an example here, right? We have a doctor who is also a priest who, like is among, a division of Catholics who like are specifically, the Jesuits are specifically concerned with, like you said, Keenan, threading the needle between the scientific and the
spiritual,
the spiritual,
and using education and not they have religious education, but they also go out and found universities that are very dedicated to just education of the world, of the physical world as we see around it.
Right. So none of these things have to be mutually exclusive, right? As we have seen, characters are able to do in this story, and characters are not able to do, like Dr. Klein. Like he cannot separate his big old male ego from his calling as a doctor,
right.
Yeah. So it seems like Dr. Klein thinks he knows everything, and so he has like stopped asking the scientific questions, right? Like he's just like whatever I know. And here Chris is trying her best to convince him, is like, look, Doc, I really don't understand how her whole personality could change, right? This is what she says, and he ascribes it to a lesion. Now, Keenan, I know it's not just me, because I've heard other people on other podcasts comment on how lesion sounds very similar to legion, right?
I suppose so, yeah.
And while the words sound similar, I can't imagine that this is a purposeful thing. What do you think?
I can't imagine that either. I mean, because that would be the case. So you do get lesions on your brains that can change your entire personality. That does happen, as we've seen. So they can change as you were saying, your ability to perceive and your ability to speak and your ability to unite, where information is in each lobe of your brain and be able to know what something is, but not know its name, or know a name, but not know what it looks like. Yeah. So you can change your personality with one lesion. That's interesting. So, we talked about legion in relationship to the book?
So legion. Let's which legion are we talking about here?
Well, if I could do a reading of the Book of Blatty, did we do this yet?
Oh, no. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I suppose we skipped this. This is so you open up the books, and my book says, "See the movie." Don't read this book. See the movie.
That's the first thing.
Books are boring.
People never get past the cover. They're just like, "See the movie." I was like, okay.
Chuck this in the garbage chute.
Yeah.
See the movie. It's the most electrifying thing that will happen to you. You open it up.
Right.
Yada, yada, yada. Reviews. The Exorcist, William Peter Blatty. Open that up. It says, "For Beth." And then the next thing, this is the very first thing we read in the body of The Exorcist, a reading from the Book of Blatty. Now, when Jesus stepped ashore, there met him a certain man who for a long time was possessed by a devil. Many times it had lain hold of him, and he was bound with chains, but he would break the bonds asunder. And Jesus asked him, saying, What is thy name? And he said, Legion. Luke chapter 8, 27-30.
Yes, my copy has that as well. That seems to be something that he has been citing from the very beginning. So, so folks, the name Legion comes from a famous passage in the Bible. Jesus comes upon this man who seems to be possessed, and when he asks I guess he's not asking the man's name, he's asking the demon's name, and the demon says, "We are legion, for we are many," right? And it's this idea that he's not possessed by, well, I don't know, it changes in your interpretation. He's either possessed by many devils, and that's why they say we are legion, or he's possessed by this personification of many personalities, like it's one demon, but it's the personification of like an army of voices or something like that.
Yes. So we do. Blatty is. I'm leaving out some ellipses here. So Blatty is condensing this story a little bit. So right. He's choosing slightly a more mysterious version of this, right, by leaving out some other things. But yeah, and he ends it before Jesus solves this problem of legion, right? So legion in the Bible, or depending, I suppose, on which one you're looking at, legion is capitalized with a capital L, so. My name is Legion, right? For we are many. So I have named myself this, which would not be necessarily uncommon, right? You might name yourself after your profession, or take on a name that's based on the area you're from or who your father was, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you could change your name. So he says, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And so then he says, "Yes, we are legion, for we are many." And he begs Jesus to leave him alone, basically. "Don't send me out of here." And Jesus does. Well, I guess this is kind of a spoiler to what Jesus does to poor Legion. And
spoilers for the Bible.
I mean, I guess it's a spoiler for The Exorcist, is what I mean.
Well, not until you just said that, but.
Well, I was going to finish the story, but that,
Okay, yeah, no. Actually, yeah, no. Finish the story, because you've mentioned it before as well.
Yeah, so Jesus takes the soul of Legion out, and we don't get an answer whether Legion is many demons, or is just one demon, or whatever, right? But Jesus expels the soul of Legion out of this person, and then puts him into a flock of pigs, and the flock of pigs goes and, I believe, runs off a cliff and kills itself.
Wait, a flock of pigs?
Oh, geez. What do you call them?
Those are those flying pigs. Look at that! Up in the sky, it's a flock of pigs.
I'll believe in this Jesus of Nazareth when pigs fly.
Right. Well, there we go.
Oh, and that's how the Pharisees came to know Jesus as their Lord.
Right, yeah.
But
it was like 3 days before the crucifixion. It was like, look at these flying pigs. I think it's just a herd.
A herd
maybe?
Of pigs.
Yeah, a herd of pigs.
A murder of pigs.
I like that. I like parliament.
Hold on. It's like a parliament of owls is what it is. Let's see.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a group of pigs name. My boyfriend loves these, so he collects these, a murder of pigs, etc. Okay. A group of pigs is called a drift or a drove.
Oh, okay.
A group of boars is called a singular.
What?
A group
English, you were already on notice. A group of something being called a singular?
That's right. He's Legion.
Stop it.
I am the opposite of Legion. We are the opposite of Legion, for we are one.
Oh, God.
Singular. A group of pigs is called a drifter, drove. A group of hogs is called a passel. A group of swine is called a sounder. A group of boars is called a singular.
Why do we have so many collective nouns for something that is essentially a pigs, swine, boars, hogs? Oh my God.
Hey, man. I don't know. I didn't invent this language.
I don't want to be like pig racist and say that they all look the same. But
all right, let me go through a group of baboons is called a troop.
Oh, geez.
A troop of baboons.
Okay, that makes sense.
A shrewdness of apes.
Okay.
A cauldron of bats.
Oh, I like that.
An obstinacy of buffalo.
An obstinacy of buffalo.
Yeah, a clouder of cats, which is like a colony out in the wilderness.
Okay.
A coalition of cheetahs. a quiver of cobras. There's a lot
okay.
here. You've heard of a murder of crows, I'm sure, right?
I was going to ask you, Keenan, what do you call it when there's only 2 crows around?
Oh, what?
I would call that an attempted murder.
A group of locusts is called a plague.
Oh, well, there we go. Well, that's perfect. Okay, bringing it back, right? We got a plague of locusts.
Right.
That works. Keenan, what would you call the collective noun for doctors?
Oh, geez. I don't know. A country club of doctors.
A country club of doctors. I like that.
Oh, a pandemonium of parrots. A pandemonium of parrots.
Wait. Okay, I'm actually glad you brought that up because pandemonium. We know where that comes. Well, you know where that comes from. Right?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's Milton. He coined that in Paradise Lost. Mm-hmm. So pan meaning all, right? Mm-hmm. Demonium meaning devils and demons, right? So Lucifer Falls, which sounds like a nice, quaint little small town, Lucifer Falls. He's down in hell with all the devils, with all the fallen angels, and they're like, oh, let's build this palace, let's build this city, right? And they build it, and it's called Pandemonium.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
and it's like all the devils, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we say Pandemonium is like oh, it's crazy, hectic,
it's chaos,
oh, it was Pandemonium, yeah, it's chaos,
yeah.
right? But yeah, Pandemonium, yeah.
Oh, I like that a lot.
That was Milton, yeah.
So what did they call a group of parrots before the 1600s? You have to wonder.
I don't know. I would just say a flock, I guess.
All right. So, anyways, that's Legion. That's the devil, or that's the demon that Jesus expelled from the man and put into what did I didn't learn. It
was a herd of pigs. Well,
no.
Let's do.
I read
Lester,
all
were you
that.
Not listening?
I read all that, and neither of us learned anything. Oh, I get it when it's our job and we go in and the students don't learn anything. It's also their job to be there, but this is supposed to be on our own time.
This is embarrassing.
A something of pigs.
A something of pigs. You know what?
Barrel.
Actually, so a barrel of pigs. A barrel of pigs. I guess we can then say that the collective word for demons would be legion, right? A legion of demons. I suppose
so. Yeah. All right. So it's a drift of pigs. Okay.
Right. Oh yeah, drift or drove.
Drove of pigs. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, actually, so I sort of heard the Legion story a little bit differently.
Okay.
The demon Legion is begging Jesus not to expel him, and it's the demon who comes up with the idea. It's like, oh, what about those pigs over there? Can you give those pigs to us instead? Right. And Jesus is kind of like, all right, fine. Mm-hmm. Right. And so the demons go into the pigs, and then immediately the pigs kind of drown themselves in the river.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right.
They just run right into the river. And I don't know if that's Jesus, or I don't know if that's the demon being like, okay, let's kill these pigs, or, it's like, yeah.
Right. Because Jesus doesn't really play tricks on people. Right.
No. Yeah. He's not like, oh, okay, yeah, you want to go into those pigs, huh? Right. Yeah, I'll do that. Right. So it seems like that's the demon's choice to be like, I don't know if it did that intentionally, let's kill the pigs, or it was just so happy, like Gollum at the end of Lord of the Rings. It's and it just didn't look where it was going, and they all just go into the river or whatever.
Yeah, I got it right. I tricked Jesus, and I'm so excited to have tricked Jesus. I don't know. I don't know if Legion must have believed in the godliness of Christ, or at least his powers, right? Because that's kind of interesting, I suppose, if you read it that way. And again, there's people who think about this professionally, but the Pharisees and a lot of the other rabbis, right? They don't believe in Jesus at all for any of his powers. Right. They call him a magician, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it is that kind of idea, like we were talking about with Dr. Faustus or something, right? Like the evidence of Mephistopheles is the evidence of God. Right. So Legion, who is a demon, is able to recognize the power of Christ. Is that maybe how that works?
I get because I never actually thought about it before, but you're right. He doesn't go up to this demon Legion, and Legion's laughing in his face, ha! What are you going to do, you magician? You can't do anything. Right. It immediately recognizes him, and it's like, oh no, please don't exorcise us. Please let us have the pigs. Which okay. So Also, oh man, we have to address this at some point. It's running a little bit long this episode, but I want to address the problem of Pazuzu specifically,
Okay.
within this story at some point, and just like how like Legion seems to kind of like play into this story maybe a little bit more appropriately than Pazuzu, right? Like, because we got this demon speaking like all these different voices, and then we got Father Marin at the end being like, "There is only one," right? And I don't know, like it just. Well, okay, yeah, we'll get into it a little bit later.
Right, but it is Blatty. It is Blatty who was quoting the Legion story. That wasn't us putting that on there. That's how Blatty opens the novel.
Right, and he actually has one of the priests reading that during the exorcism. So
right, and the Exorcist 3 movie is based on Blatty's sequel to The Exorcist, which is called Legion.
Legion, right? Yeah. So yeah, we would be amiss if we didn't mention that. Yeah, like the book that comes right after this is called Legion.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, so a lot of Legion stuff, and actually, yeah, I think like this specific demon shows up in that book as well, which I don't know if I like that or whatever, but we'll get to that. But yeah, so yeah, all that to say, I doubt that it's purposeful that we got lesion and legion, right? Like it seems a little bit on the nose, like they think it's a lesion, but it's actually a legion,
right? I see.
Okay,
I get where they're coming from now. Yeah, but
yeah,
no,
but I don't even think they're doing that. I don't, because that would be too much. That would be too like smug, too winky. Like I don't want that. I wouldn't like that, right? Like it's like right up there with like Beelzebuddy or something like that. It's like it's a little too on the nose, right?
And this passage is not making a lot out of the word lesion. It's not Chris going lesion and then writing that down and having a discovery of anything, right? It never comes up again.
Yeah, it's almost like she already understands what a lesion is.
Sure, I mean you would know it. Yeah, a lesion. Yeah.
Yeah, because he doesn't have to explain it like, oh, it's a it's a cut or it's a this
a
or
lesion
that.
on the brain is different. She might not have ever thought about that before, but yeah, certainly she knows what lesion is.
Right. So, okay, so yeah, that is my notes for this minute. Keenan, you got anything else here?
No, I think we got it all.
Folks, this has been another excellent Exorcist Minute. I've been Lester Ryan Clark. You can find me on all the socials as Lester Ryan Clark.
And as always, I have been Keenan Diaz, and you can find me on Letterboxd and Instagram as Howdy Keenan.
Yes, and we also have a Facebook page for the show. It's The Exorcist Minute, so like and follow for updates there. And we have our listener group. It's called Compelling Conversations. So come and join, and then you'll be in here with us. Lastly, if you like our show, the best thing that you can do for a podcast that's just starting out is to leave a little 5-star review, and that'll help us reach more people, and we can keep growing this cool community. All right. So, Keenan, I think that's it. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think I am, Lester.
Folks, until next time, the power of pandemonium compels you. That's parrots, right?
I don't remember. No, it's a group of parrots.
Yeah.
I didn't see a group of pandas either.
Yeah, what's that would be a pandemonium. English language, what are you doing? We're back to driving a parkway and parking a driveway. Come on.
Oh my gosh. A group of pandas is called an embarrassment of pandas.
That's the one we end on.